Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Rebecca and Rebecca, where we love books. And today we're here to talk about Elizabeth Goddard's latest book called Cold Light of Day. And my partner in this venture is Rebecca Reed. How are you, Rebecca?
I'm well.
I'm glad to hear it. You sure?
Yes. Yes, I could stand for a little warmer spring, but
Yeah.
it's okay.
It is a
We'll
weird
get
spring
there.
so far. But, and again, by the time this airs, it's going to be the heat of summer, and we'll be complaining about the heat of summer now, won't
True.
we? So,
That is
anyway,
true.
let's talk about Cold Light of Day. I'm going to read the blurb and then we can get into it. So, Police Chief Autumn Long is fighting to keep her job in the quiet Alaska town of Shadow Gap when an unexpected string of criminal activity leaves her with a wounded officer, unexplained murders, and even an attack on her own father. Despite her mistrust of outsiders, she turns to Greer Brenner, a newcomer who seems to have the skills and training Autumn needs to face this threat to her community. Now, Greer is in Alaska for the same reason so many others are, and that's to disappear. When Chief Long enlists his help, he emerges from the shadows and proves his mettle, but his presence in her life could be a deadly trap for them both. If his secret is exposed, all will be lost, and he's not even sure Autumn could save him. As the stakes rise and the dangers increase, Autumn and Greer must rely on each other to extinguish the deadly threats. Obviously, this is a romantic suspense book. Alaska seems to be a very popular setting, especially for romantic suspense. I know Danny Petrie set a lot of her books there, and Susie May Warren has set several of her books in Alaska, and I don't mind that. Alaska seems a fascinating place, and there's lots you can do with it. So,
I agree. I really enjoyed the setting. This is a very remote part of Alaska too. It's you know, bush plains and that type of thing. All to get anywhere where you can get enough medical help. There's very little backup. This is, we mentioned romantic suspense. So when the suspense elements take over, there's not a lot of backup for them as far as extra law enforcement. It takes a long time for people to arrive to help. So they have to, a lot of the residents, of course, take things into their own hands. I think that's a normal part of being in the middle of nowhere, Alaska. But I did enjoy the two neighbors that kind of helped, that were friends. I guess they were Greer's friends that he
mm-hmm.
um, those side characters were really fun, and I think they added a lot to the story.
And we love when that happens because in one of the previous books that we reviewed earlier this year, Dear Henry, Love Edith, which was a romantic comedy by Becca Kinzer, again, the town had so many fun and interesting characters. And even in the small remote town of Alaska, there's still some fun, even though it's suspenseful, but these characters play into it and really add extra dimension to the town. And so I think you get a better feel for the setting.
Yes,
Mm.
and Autumn, the main character's it's her grandparents that own the
Yes.
eatery, which
Yes.
is kind of a central point for people to
Right.
go and in the town.
The
And
lively moose. Was that?
that's what it was.
Yes.
Lively. I couldn't think of what it was called. I knew something about moose, but
Yeah.
yeah. And that was a really interesting place too, because of course her mother is not with them. She's dead. And that has been a big has put a hole in Autumn's life. And so she's with her father, and of course the death of her mother really sent the father into a bit of a personal tailspin. And so she's trying to not only be the sheriff of the town, but also protect her father because he has taken to a bit more alcohol than he should be. And so she's trying to keep him safe, keep the people safe, keep her own job safe, because
Mhm.
there's a bit of opposition on the town council. When she was named sheriff, she was not this person's choice to be named that. And
Right.
so there's opposition there that she's working about, trying to like offset. Um, there's a lot of things actually going on in this story.
There are. She's trying to keep her job, number one, and for a small town and that you want to keep your job. And she wants to prove herself. She was with her mother when her mother died, had a diving accident. Um, and stuff. So she's, carries a lot of that weight with her, and then trying to keep her job. And then all of a sudden, all this criminal activity and these murders and things start happening in her teeny tiny town where usually it's, someone's fussing at the other person. There's not a lot of crime in Shadow
Mhm.
Gap.
Missing dogs and
Yeah.
things, stuff like that.
So this criminal element comes to town, and this is where I think the book is so well done. This mystery, the suspense part of the book, lots of twists and turns, a few red herrings. We suspected at least one of the characters, maybe two, of being a bad guy, and they weren't. But it was kind of fun. It was a fun read in that sense. How is this all going to come together?
Yes, I enjoyed following those clues, and they seemed so disjointed at first, and we didn't really understand what was going on. There was body after body. There was like what, four, three, four, five. But I don't know. There was a lot of bodies in this one. Um, but following all of that, the twisting and the turning, and
Mhm.
and there was a lot of action. So if you like action, you would definitely like this story. It does have bush pilot, it does have there's actually scuba diving involved too, and that was a major part of the story. So that was really interesting. Um, I think, I of course Alaska is its own uh
Mhm.
plays its own role in any romantic suspense there, because there's just so many things climate wise, that can kill you, that it's kind of its own thing. And the diving, I was really interested to learn about the water temperature and how it affected people who were in the water for very long. And the diving was different because of the temperature of the water. I didn't realize that was
Mhm.
a thing.
Yeah.
So that was interesting.
So
um,
learning things too.
yeah. And there was, there was a lot of you know kind of hiking and traipsing around, and lots of movement here and there and the other place. But the way that Elizabeth brought these two stories, her story and Greer's story, Autumn's and Greer's stories, to how she twisted them into kind of a rope at the end, and they sort of became one story. It was really well done, very
Yeah.
well done.
It really was very suspenseful. The character of Greer, we'll talk characters. Both characters I think are very well drawn.
Hmm.
Lots of backstory that leads them to how they act, why they act the way they do now. For writers, look at the backstory. Look, really, they're well developed characters um, before they even hit the page on that. But Greer is, this mysterious um, guy that shows up in town, like the write-up said, he goes to disappear. And we find out later why he disappeared, but he's very mysterious at first, yet he's got skills. And so
Hmm.
he's trained somewhere, and so as a reader, you're trying to figure out, what his skills are, what his background are. It's like Autumn is doing the same thing. She keeps trying to
Yes.
pull information out of him, you know,
And he
throughout the
wants to tell
story.
her, and,
Yeah.
and that's part of the romantic part is too. The problem is that Greer can't tell her his background because it would put her in danger, in more danger. Her father, when there was an attack, it mentioned that in the blurb, that there was an attack on her father, and the father says that they weren't after him, they were after Autumn, and she
Yeah.
won't believe that.
Yeah.
um Greer thinks they're all after him.
Yeah.
So it's there's a lot of threads there, and everybody's thinks something different about it, but nobody can really tell anybody. Nobody's communicating, which
Right.
always causes problems. So those of you who are in relationships, remember to communicate because you don't want a romantic suspense to happen in your life.
That's right. And they couldn't, and there were a lot of secrets and a lot of mystery. Like the father kept telling Autumn, "You're in danger. They're after you." And she didn't believe it. And I don't know why she didn't think some of that through, because she just kept
Yeah,
going, but she's trying to save her job. So I think she kept trying to prove herself,
right.
and maybe didn't put herself in the best situations when that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of pressure, from the town council because they were actually accusing I mean, they got her certification taken away of some sort of certification. I never was quite clear exactly what that was,
Yeah.
but something they brought her up on some kind of charges or something and to a board somewhere and that was very stressful. The fact that her father, wasn't taking care of himself and she was terrified that he was gonna have an accident or something because of his drinking. And then there's just so many stressors. And then the police officer that's the son of the guy on the town council, and she doesn't know whether she can trust him or not. And
Right.
there's a lot of pressure on her from the from her job point of view, from
Right.
being to stay the sheriff. And the reason she wants to stay the sheriff, it is a good reason and it's very motivating. I think the motivation lacks or doesn't it really it's enough, to keep
Yeah.
her acting this
Yeah.
way because her father was the sheriff before
Right.
her. And so it's a legacy kind of thing.
It is a legacy. And was it sheriff or chief of police? Y'all have to read the book.
Maybe it is chief of
Chief of
police.
police.
It is police. I keep saying sheriff. Sheriff is wrong. Nick the sheriff. It was police chief. You're right.
Just
I wrote it down even in my notes, but I kept saying sheriff. Sorry.
that's all right. It's a small town. You automatically kind of think sheriff. It's wild,
Right.
Wild West on there. But yeah, good
And
stuff.
her brother was a state trooper,
Yes.
correct? So he was an Alaska state trooper. So he was kind of came and went in the story. He was there part of the time, but he was off doing his own thing too.
Right.
And he was one he was an interesting character because
Mhm.
he had quite a personality as well. He was kind of he was a little on the mysterious side
He
too,
was
don't
a
you
little on
think?
the mysterious side. There are a few mysterious characters, like we said, that
Mm.
come in and out, and you're kind of wondering because by this point you're trying to figure out the mystery, which I didn't figure out at
I
all.
didn't.
And sometimes you can, as readers, and,
Yeah,
and it
no, I
doesn't
didn't. I
take
didn't
away
see
the
it.
enjoyment when you figure
Yeah.
it out. But this one I couldn't.
Mm-mm. I had no. I actually had a lot of other people pegged as the wrong, the
Yeah.
bad people, and they ended up not being the bad people. So
So that's good. So
yeah,
yeah, so again, well done on this mystery, this suspense, and all these different threads. She ties them together. We did talk about there was one thread, and this wasn't really a suspense thread that got tied a little too neatly and a little too quickly at the end. And not a big deal because I don't think it really affects the rest of the story, but some of that was but the main mystery, the main suspense was really, really well done. Um, the one thing that I think not a negative, but not done as well was the romance side of it. And you like Greer and you like Autumn. And
hmm
in fact, I like them together.
hmm
But with everything going on, it seemed like they wouldn't be thinking romance. There's too much happening.
which did periodically happen. Like I felt
Yeah.
like it was they'd be like going together, and then like, nope, stop, nope, no romance, and then they'd be like, maybe, and then be like, nope, 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 we can't do that. And it was kind of because I mean, well, he was under a lot of pressure,
Hmm.
she was under a lot of pressure, and they did like each other, they were drawn to each other, but then it was kind of it was like how when kids first learn to drive a stick shift, how the jerky kind of that's what it reminded me of, the romance, like a kid learning to drive a stick.
Okay.
So
And that may have been on purpose because maybe
maybe.
had they been kissing all the way through this, you would have thought, why are they kissing when, there's a guy with a gun out in the woods trying to kill them? And that wasn't the case here. But I don't know.
Yeah, The mudslide was good. I liked the mudslide.
That's like, so yeah, in fact, ew, don't want to be caught in a mudslide anytime soon.
No, but that part
Um,
was well done, written well. I felt like
yeah,
it was very suspenseful.
because I felt like I was in that sticky
Yeah,
mud
it's like
and just so out of control, with that. And maybe that's kind of their feelings were out of control and they were doing everything they could to rein him back in. That's a good point.
yeah,
All right, I might
but
have
then
to
it
read.
balanced the avalanche at the beginning.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, read the prologue. For I hear readers skip prologues, and I never, never, never
Yeah,
skip a
don't skip
prologue in
the
the book.
prologue.
Never
You
skip a
need
prologue.
the prologue.
Yes.
Yeah, don't skip anything.
Don't.
Don't skip the description. We spend a lot of time on that.
Cover copy. But yeah, the prologue is really good because it kind of sets it up. And then you
Hmm.
realize how those early characters in the prologue were connected with one of the
Yeah,
town's characters, especially. And
yeah, you definitely
um,
need the prologue this one, or else
yeah.
because later in the book, if you don't read the prologue or you skim through it, you're gonna have to go back and read it anyway. So you might as well just read it at the
Just read
beginning.
it. And readers, don't skip the prologues. They're there for a reason, and they're important.
Yeah,
Especially in, I think, in suspense books, they are there for a reason.
fantasy books too.
Oh, good to know. See?
Yeah.
Don't skip the prologues. There we go. So for you want to talk about the narration because Rebecca
Oh,
listens to the books.
yes.
So this is all audible
Um,
while I read on Kindle. So talk about the
Sarah
narration.
Farrington was the narrator. She performed the book, and I can't say that I would like go out and like follow her and be like listening to everything that she read just because I loved her voice so much. But I also feel like she did not get in the way.
Mm.
And she did a fair job of differentiating everybody and to where I could tell, who it was. Um, and so that's all I ask, for in that is I just don't get in the way of the story. Don't do anything so crazy that it's like, wait, what was that? Because that's not the point, right? That's just as bad as the author intruding in the story and pulling you out of the story that way. So, as far as narrators go, I thought she did a fine job, and I would not mind listening to her again. So,
Well, good deal. Um, I think this is part of a series. This in the
mhm.
cold light of day. Book number 2 is going to release in October. It's called Shadows at Dusk, and it's actually going to focus on the bush pilot, which we mentioned earlier. So as you're reading the first one, pay attention to the bush pilot because she gets her own story, and that makes me curious. And we'll have to ask Elizabeth this when we talk to her next month. Um, don't you think the brother should get a story?
I agree. The brother definitely needs a story. Yeah, he
Because
does.
I want to know more about him,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
his history and stuff. So I would recommend Cold Light of Day for the mystery suspense part alone. The romance is okay, definitely wasn't my favorite, but the suspense part is so, so well done. So interesting, keeping you guessing. So I give this about
Mhm.
4 stars, I think.
Yeah, me too. That's what I was thinking.
Okay.
About four. Yep.
And stuff and definitely will I've read another of Elizabeth's book and I will probably pick up the second one um just to see what happens. You get drawn to the characters and when an author can draw out the characters so well that you're already intrigued with them and then you're excited for the next book, with a character that wasn't a main one but part of the first book, then I think that's good because you want to, I want to go to the Lively Moose and hang out, you know.
Me too. Yeah, I would definitely go there and eat because the food sounded delicious. And I would love to, sit in the booth and chat with
Mhm.
Greer's friends, which I cannot remember their names, sorry, because I don't remember names anyway. If I didn't write them down, I'm apologizing because
Sorry. Well, that's why
but
people need to go read the book because you got to find out about these characters, and I'm
yeah,
presuming some of them might come back in the second book, so we'll still get a taste
yep.
of Hank was one of them. He had the dog,
Oh yeah, Hank.
and
The other one was some other name like that, but I don't remember.
began with an O. Isn't that terrible? Shame on us.
No,
We,
that's good for you.
but
I don't remember that.
but
I remember the dog.
The dog was memorable.
I remember the dog. He was quite
And
helpful.
the gal in the police in the office who ran the police
Oh
department
yeah,
and
she
stuff.
was
She was
awesome. I
so
liked her a lot.
she might be one to. I mean, I know she's
Well,
older, but I don't know.
she should still be in the second book
Yeah.
because she and another character whom I will not name were starting to have a thing for each other, I think.
Oh, now that would be a great side plot for
Yeah.
one of these upcoming stories. Oh, well, we've got lots of questions for Elizabeth then, don't we? I want to know what happens and how many books are going to be in this series because Shadow Gap is just a town where, oh my gosh, how much fun can you have with the
I know.
characters?
I loved the name of the town. I was going
Yeah,
to say that earlier. It's like Shadow Gap is the perfect name for this town. It really is.
it really is.
Yeah. So
And
nice.
well drawn and again, I like it when the settings become a character and you almost don't realize it, in these small towns. And it's not just Alaska, it's this town. Yeah.
Yep.
I think do that.
That
And
was a
then you
nice
put the
one.
quirky characters in there that keep things going. And sometimes with romantic suspense, you need the little bit of lightheartedness to, something lighthearted to give you a little break from all the action and all the danger. And
Right.
there's lots of danger in this story.
There
Lots of,
is. Yeah.
lots of intrigue. Definitely worth the read. Again, 4 stars. It's Cold Light of Day by Elizabeth Goddard. Enjoy the suspense. See if you can figure it out yourself. We didn't,
Challenge.
which means it's done well. We look forward to talking to Elizabeth next month. So please come back and we'll hear more about this book as well as her future books. And I think that's going to be a great conversation.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank
Bye-bye.
you for being there this time, and we'll see y'all next month.